Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Terry Fletcher. So today is the WTF, What the Football, Week 2. And boy, I have a lineup this week. It was insane, just some of the things that we saw. Now, last week I ended with the Steelers. I'm going to start with them. Actually, let's start with Thursday Night Football, then I'll get into the Steelers. The Browns, Cincinnati, and the Browns win, but rookie Joe Burrow, he threw over 60 passes and still lost. I'm not really sure what they're doing over there in Cincinnati. The defense just can't seem to stop anybody, and their special teams isn't helping. But he's not used to losing, and I think that's what he actually said in his post-presser. Somebody said, how are you doing with all this? Because he's getting praises for doing a good job, but he's not winning games. And so he said something to the effect that, this is different for me. So I think he meant this is not what I expected when it came to losing. But when you're the number one overall pick, what kind of team are you going to? Welcome to the NFL. You're going to the worst team in the league. So he's got a definite uphill battle in what he's doing there, but a WTF for sure. It was probably the epitome of Thursday Night Football. As we know, sometimes they put some real dogs out there. High scoring game though. So definitely fun to watch. So let's get down to the Steelers and some of the WTF moments there. So there were just so many frustrating things about this game. And I know we've said in the past, a win is a win, but ugly wins make you a little nervous because then you don't know what to expect the next week when you're playing a good team that has their starting quarterback in. And so they were down at their starting quarterback at some point. We ended up having Driscoll was the quarterback because their quarterback got hurt, and so we were dealing with their backup. So Locke was out, Driscoll was in, and it still didn't seem to help some of the mistakes that we were making. Now, Ebron got robbed on a fourth down call, and there was no pass interference, and they basically didn't call it fairly, in my opinion. One of the ref games, they were basically trying to give it away to them, and a lot of defensive pass interference calls by refs, and just being in the area. Remember the Devin Bush? He just was in the area, and they tried to call it on him, and so they didn't reciprocate by giving us any calls that were even closer than that. So that was very frustrating. One of the other ones was the late roughing the passer call. That was just complete BS, if you ask me. I was just like, what are you talking about? But let's talk about what we did to kind of shoot ourselves in the foot to almost lose the game. First of all, Snell fumble. And I know that one of the other media people that are out there, she was talking about how the defense carried the team as far as the win, but she didn't talk about the fumble and how that really was a problem. And that's 2 in 2 games. And if there's one thing that Coach Tomlin does not like, it's fumbles from his running back. So even though he has a lot of talent, he's going to have to learn to hold on to that ball. Ball protection, ball security is number one, not only for the Steelers, but in the NFL. Or let me tell you, it's going to be, dude, WTF, you're out of here. So hopefully he fixes that problem. My next is very controversial, and I think some of you may be thinking in your heads at times when it comes to Deontay Johnson, what are you doing back there? Okay. When he catches punt returns, it just seems like he doesn't make good decisions. You never catch them before the 10 and definitely not at the 5-yard line. You let it go. Now he does redeem himself and he does come back and make some pretty amazing catches, and he's got that amazing speed. And so when he can weave in and out between people and gets the block set up correctly, and he almost took one in for a touchdown. But again, we had an illegal block in the back by Sutton, I think it was. And so those are frustrating. But the fact that I just feel like he thinks he's going to get hit back there. When you watch him catch as he's looking up, he can see out of his periphery that he can see people coming, and he gets very tentative. So he makes me nervous. I hold my breath every time he's back there. So hopefully he's fixed those problems. He dropped one with Ben, and I know Ben gets very frustrated. But he just reminds me just of some of the past receivers that we've had, and hopefully he'll fix it because he is a very frequent target. And so we need him to be a lot better because that was just very scary. So we get to the second half and I'm thinking, okay, we deferred. So this is good. We have, we're doing okay. Ray McLeod, and I love that name, Ray. My brother's name's Ray, so I'm like really excited about that. He does a 49-yard kick return, only to have Big Ben, and I love you, Ben, but an ill-advised throw with all kinds of time on the clock. I mean, we were counting 1,000, 2 1,000. I think we got to 6 before he threw that really bad throw for an interception. Then we had some back and forth touchdowns. And then luckily, I don't know when all of you saw the safety, but as the game was going on, I'm thinking, wow, are we going to need that safety in the end? And it was from a perfect snap. So we definitely needed that more than we thought. So that was definitely helpful. But then again, shooting ourselves in the foot, Minkah knows better than to horse collar anybody. You never grab at the top of the jersey at the neck. So I haven't seen flashes of Minkah lately. We've been seeing a lot of Joe Hayden, a lot of Watt, a lot of Dupree. So Minkah needs to step up his game because that's why we took him as our first round last year. We need him to be that WTF player thinking, okay, who got him at such a bargain? And then the other probably WTF moment that I think just in the Steelers part here was the 58-yard field goal attempt at Heinz Field on 4th down. How many of you are like, we're going to see that or hear that on Terry's podcast? We just can't believe that somebody would even try that. It was like they thought they were in Denver and that the ball was going to sail. Yeah, that doesn't happen. So definitely an interesting game. So happy for the win. Can't wait to play the Texans. But oh my gosh, that was just very much a nail biter and just kind of some bonehead things that happened. So guys, let's step it up and stop with some of those moments. This is this is our second week. Now we're getting into our third week and the teams are just going to get better. So we've kind of lucked out the last 2 weeks. So the Atlanta versus Cowboys game, I just am going to bring up one just really, there's no other way to say it. It was someone didn't know the rules and made just WTF, what the football bonehead bad decision. And it was all the players. So they did an onside kick because obviously there was some back and forth going on and it was a very, very close game. But Atlanta waited for the ball to go 10 yards before they went after it. They're the receiving team. All they had to do was fall on it. But no, they let a Dallas receiver recover it for the win and a field goal. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I mean, who doesn't know those rules? So, you get what you get. Now, the 49ers, they won without Jimmy Garoppolo, who was injured. I hope he basically feels better because we don't like it when the quarterbacks are injured. I mean, you want to play the competition. You don't want to have to go in and go, okay, this could be a problem because we've got a backup. We don't know what we're seeing. We didn't plan for this game. And so that, we always wish everybody to good health. But they played the Jets. Now, Le'Veon Bell's on IR with a hamstring now. That guy's always injured, and I think it's more about the fact that his coach doesn't want him there. He's not liking it there, and, he's basically, I'm out. But how does Adam Gase have a job? I'm just asking for a friend. So, to me, a WTF moment is, seriously, why does he still have a job? I think the Peyton Manning endorsement was a long time ago, so I would be surprised if he keeps his job through the end of the season. Now, we know that every single NFL media outlet, ESPN, NFL Network, etc., are going to be just slobbering all over the fact that Brady won Tampa Bay versus Carolina, and this is all we're going to hear about. But a word of advice there, you might want to hold back a little bit because you weren't playing a very good team. So I would be really careful on that. But here is the big thing, and this is going to be a fantasy word of advice for me. The Gronkowski, Tom Brady, reunion tour, it's a bust. He got 0 again on fantasy. They don't target him at all. I've traded him away. Just let it go. Let it go of the dream. It's not worth it. So let's just talk about another quarterback that is kind of losing his mind, but he's not a favorite of mine, and I know I've said that about a couple of people, but there's just a couple of quarterbacks out there that I'm not really sold on that everybody else is like, oh my gosh. And I think you'll know who it is, and his name is Kirk Cousins. Yeah, he 113 yards, 3 interceptions. Yeah, the Colts win. I don't get it. Okay, I know he was paid a ton of guaranteed money, $85 million. And I think at the end of his contract, he'll be lucky to be a backup somewhere. I just don't get it. But, you get what you pay for, apparently. And in the world of NFL, maybe he was considered a bargain. Who knows? Now, Kansas City, that game was interesting. I have a friend of mine who is very much a Kansas City fan. I mean, he's one click short of painting his face. And he was jumping up and down thinking, when you're at halftime and you've got Pat Mahomes and you're down even 2 touchdowns, you don't care. You're just like, we've got this. But all of a sudden you're getting into the fourth quarter and you got a minute left. And then you finally get into overtime and you're just thinking, okay, I'm worried now. And I could just tell he was jumping up and down trying to figure this out. But their kicker, Butker, he basically had 2 58-yarders. And in overtime, it took him 3 tries. First, it was 54. Then there was a penalty. Then it was 58. So they pulled it back. And then basically they froze him out. So he had to kick it again. And then the false start penalty, I think the other one was. And then he finally got it. And he actually made all 3. So talk about a WTF win for Kansas City over the Chargers. It was absolutely crazy. The Sunday night game was New England and Seattle. And Cam Newton, even though, they lost to Seattle because, let's face it, Russell Wilson, who I think scored 52 fantasy points. Who does that? But it was really a solid game. Now, here's something that happened in the game for me that was clearly Bill Belichick WTF. I mean, why doesn't anybody call him on these things? So it was 7-7. And Cam Newton ran it in for a touchdown, but they said it was short and so it was 3rd and 1. And he went, Cam went over to do his Superman move over by the TV or the cameras. So they thought that they got it, and Bill Belichick threw out a red flag. Well, before the refs could see that red flag, Cam Newton lines back up and then took it in for a touchdown again. So the second try, he actually got it, but the officials missed it. You know what that means? That means that saved a timeout and a challenge for Bill Belichick. Talk about a WTF NFL favoritism. I just think that's wrong. I hope those refs get fined for that because they can't miss things like that. That is a game changer. You need those challenges. And when you don't have those timeouts, the other team has such an advantage to make sure that they can, really borrow against that. So they need to pay attention. Now, here's another thing that I thought was interesting. And this is where you really have to look at some of these games here. There was a long 60-yard touchdown in that same game for Metcalf, but the defensive player of the year, Gilmore, was totally smoked on that play. And I'm just more evidence that TJ Watt was robbed. You sit there and watch him play and you see who got that, and you just sit there and think, how did TJ Watt not get that award? So that really bugs me. But speaking of Cam Newton, do you guys know that he has the 48th quarterback contract in the league of all quarterbacks? $1.2 million in guaranteed, up to potentially it says max value 7.5, but it's only up to $3 million total value in the first year and a half. Average per year 1.5. I mean, think of the quarterbacks that have better contracts than Cam Newton: Matt Schaub, Matt Barkley, Robert Griffin III, Colt McCoy, Jeff Driscoll, Andy Dalton, who's a backup now in Dallas, AJ McCarron. Who does he play for? Chase Daniel. Where are they? Case Keenum is making $6 million. And Marcus Mariota, $8.8 million is backup somewhere. This is insane. He is going to get paid next year if he can stay healthy. But talk about, again, another win-win for New England to get the caliber quarterback that they have with Cam Newton. And it's just bargain. I mean, remember what Mahomes just got paid, $500 million for 10 years. That was just a total WTF moment for me. He's younger than my daughter. 23 years old, 23, 24 years old. That is crazy money. And to think that Cam Newton doesn't even make a tenth of that. It's unbelievable. So then we also have The Monday Night Football game. So the extra point, 3 plays with 2 penalties to get them to 10-0 for the Saints in the first quarter. And then at halftime, it was actually tied 17-17. So Carr played well. It took him a little time to get his legs, and this was the new Raiders field, so the new Raiders there, and there was no fans at all. Of course, they did let some elite people in to watch the game, but none of the actual fans who paid for the actual stadium. So that would really bug me. Let's face it, the new stadium for the Raiders, $1.84 billion. The new stadium for the Los Angeles Rams, $5 billion. You don't think the NFL has money to make sure it's safe for fans to go in? I mean, it's insane right now what's going on. But that was an interesting game, and it turned out the Raiders won 34-24. So you're basically up 10-0, and you go back to lose it 34-24, and the Raiders won in their new stadium. The Saints just, if you saw the game, they just stopped playing. So, that's the other quarterback I'm not a fan of. So I'm a fan of 40 quarterbacks, but you can keep Breeze and Kirk Cousins to yourself. So, but the other quarterbacks I actually like. But sad WTFs, and this is the injuries. 7 players suffered torn ACLs and between week 1 and 2. And it's really sad to me because these are players, star players. Running back Saquon Barkley for the Giants, Broncos wide receiver Courtland Sutton, 49ers defensive end Nick Bosa. You got 49ers defensive linebacker Solomon Thomas, Ravens cornerback Young, Seahawks linebacker Bruce Irving, and then remember Zach Banner, our own right tackle, also had happened. Also, Vikings linebacker Anthony Barr has a torn pec. These guys are all out for the season, and this should actually explain to the league, Zoom is not preseason games. Zoom is not OTAs, and Zoom is not a training camp. So you may be working out, but not being hit, not making football moves, not having any way to not go into a game cold is really tough on these players, and it could cost them their livelihood. So we need to have better protocols to figure this out. And hopefully this is the last time this will happen. It's just, it's really unfortunate that this happened. So those are my sad WTFs. So a couple of kind of amusing things. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but Bill Belichick, and I seem to be talking about him a lot, he has a Subway commercial. This man doesn't even like to talk to the press, and he actually has a Subway commercial. Does he need the money, or is he just finding his sense of humor? I'm not really sure what that is. Also, FanDuel has a new commercial with, yes, James Harrison, and it says he only gets paid if he tackles, so he has to tackle this poor guy that's trying to make bets. So WTF moments on the commercials. And I'm going to end today with Captain COVID. I know you guys are probably sick to death of hearing about COVID-19, but guess what? There are some hefty fines, not only for coaches, but for the teams if you don't wear a mask. They sent out the protocols. They're saying you have to wear a mask. We test the players every time, every week. We're testing them also midweek. And there's tough protocols here. And if you want to keep playing and you don't want to be shut down because remember all the extra personnel on the field, then you need to wear a mask. So $100,000 fine per coach, and then the team gets fined $250,000 for any infraction. So this weekend, Pete Carroll, Seattle, John Gruden, Raiders, Saints, Sean Payton, who actually tested positive for COVID about 6 months ago, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Denver's Vic Fangio and San Francisco's Kyle Shanahan. So all fined $100,000 and the team's fined $250,000. They're not messing around with this, folks. I don't like wearing a mask. You don't like wearing a mask. But if we want football to continue, just follow the rules. You're walking up and down, and you have to have it over your face covering while you're in your mic. Just do it. If you want to keep playing, just do it. So anyway, there we are for the WTF this week. We're going into week 3. Can't wait to see what happens this week. I hope everyone makes it a great day and a great rest of your week. And thank you for listening to the Steel City Underground podcast. This is WTF and Terry Fletcher. Talk to you next week.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.